This week on Rambling Sound, our special guest is Mr. Norman Fox of Norman Fox and the Rob Roys. Boy, I tell you what, that's magical to a lot of people that remember the music from the 50s. How do you remember that song when you first got started?
We, again, like many of the other groups that had started, we were in school together in high school, and we were emulating the sounds of the cleft tones of, I don't know, many groups. And we were in the bathroom, and where there was an echo, and we started to sing. And it was a vocal group. We got together, and we didn't know whether we had any talent or we didn't. We were just emulating those sounds, and I started to write some music, and a couple of the guys in the band in the group started to write some music, and before you know it, we had a couple of songs, and we started singing them at different places, at the Y, at dances, and so forth. And we wound up, and somebody had a connection, and we got a record contract from this small company out of Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm. And I bet you thought back then you were going to be a millionaire because you had a hit record.
I never thought I was going to be a millionaire, and I never did it for the money. We had so many complications in our history. Because of bad management, because we were kids, and because we were taken by these major people who were in the record business, and we didn't know any better. But we were happy, and we just wanted to make music, and that's what we did.
Part of that problem, I think, was with the song "Tell Me Why." Wasn't there a little bit of a legal issue in that, or a problem with that back in the day?
There was a problem because we put out "Tell Me Why" on Backbeat Records. And when we didn't get paid for it, we didn't want to do any more records for them. And so we had an agent who was a friend of a friend, and we were able to get a contract from Capitol, which was a substantial company. Mm-hmm. And this agent told us that we were free to sign, which we actually weren't. And so when we made the records for Capitol, which were Pizza Pie and Dream Girl, we got sued. Capitol got sued, and they didn't want to fight the suit. And so that was basically a major problem for us.
How old were you back then?
When we cut Tell Me Why, I was 17 years old. And when we cut Dream Girl, I was probably 19.
19. And when you started, I think you started as the Velvetones before the Rob Roys?
That was the name of the group before the Rob Roys, and the reason why we changed it was because the record company, there were many tone groups out there, like there were many bird groups and many car groups, and they just felt that it would be better if we changed it, so they asked us to come up with another name. And at that point, we were, the Rob Roy was a very sexy drink, although I wasn't drinking, but it was a sexy drink, and I liked the name Rob Roy. So I submitted it to them, and they accepted it.
Who were your influences back then when you get started?
I liked the Channels. As I said, I liked Herb Cox and the Cleft Tones. I liked the Cadillacs. I was crazy about the Eldorados. We used to go to the Brooklyn Paramount to Alan Freed shows, and I would stay there all day. I mean, we would see a movie and then see the same movie and then see the show over again. But I was just nuts about those groups, and we really wanted to emulate them. Those were our inspiration.
There are so many people that say, boy, if I could go back, I would love to see one of those Alan Freed shows. And you were able to take part in some of them.
They were extraordinary, and they were just fantastic. Alan Freed was a guy that I always pay tribute to in my performances, because he was the guy who really started it. Now, I don't know whether I believe he started it. He came in from Cleveland, Ohio. He had this Moondog show on the radio, and we used to listen to it incessantly. And then when he put on these shows, I mean, the streets were packed around the Brooklyn Paramount. And it was just wonderful.
You mentioned Earl Lewis. I read his book on the way up on the plane, and he's obviously going through some very difficult times. But he was a guy that kind of stepped forward when I think it was Laverne Baker got sick, and they had to raise some money for her. I mean, he's done a lot for people, and I'm hoping that some of the things I've done in the newsletter people will realize that he could use their help now.
I didn't realize that, and I know Earl. I know him a long time. I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm
he's
sorry.
having a
I'm
difficult
sorry.
time.
I didn't mean Earl Lewis. Earl is fine. I read his book, and it was
Herb.
Yeah, thank you, Herb Cox.
Herb Cox. Yeah, I'm another real gentleman of our business, and he's always been to me like the dean. He was an upstanding, lovely man with a great personality and a great talent, and his stories are fabulous. And we used to go to the shows and listen to Herb's stories about the old days and his escapades with the people in the business. And I always found it fascinating and very interesting.
I mentioned Earl Lewis, and one thing in the book that he said that it kind of caught me by surprise is that on day of a performance, he would not talk. He said, I'd talk as little as possible, and he said, I'd be nervous as a cat. And he said, if people saw me backstage, I'd be walking back and forth. He said, but when I get out on stage, I was just as calm as could be.
He shined.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people like that who are great talents. I thought that Earl was a great talent. I mean, he is a great talent. Unfortunately, he retired, and he's not doing shows anymore, but I thought he was fabulous. I'd done many shows with him. Mm-hmm. And I actually, at one point, was planning on doing the story of his life in a show on Broadway. We had a producer, and the producer wanted to do Earl Lewis, a show about Earl Lewis's life, and they came up to my office and they wanted to know if I was interested, and I said, yeah, I was interested, and we had 3 or 4 meetings, and they wrote a script, and I don't know where it went from there. Like a lot of these things, it basically faded away for whatever reason. But yeah, I had a lot of interaction with Earl over the years.
In the book, he says that they came to him and asked him if he would do the play, and he said, yes, I'd love to do it. He said, I thought about it and realized, that's not me. I'm not an actor. I'm not on Broadway. I'll go on stage and sing, but I'm not going to act. And he mentions that in the book.
Well, I'm happy that you told me that, because I'll pick up his book. We had some interesting times.
Your group broke up, I guess, in 68, and then you came back in 71, and you started doing some a cappella.
We did some a cappella records for Starlight, and they were great. The sound was great.
Yeah.
Over the years, we did many, many things. You know, I was in business and had a clothing business and traveled all over the world. It wasn't easy for me to start to come back to this business because when the first time that I got a call from Ronnie I, who wanted to do one of these shows, the revival shows that are so popular now, I said, I can't do it. I'm just not in the country that often. I don't have a schedule where I can give you a time where you can set a date. And he got upset with me, and so we had a little bit of a falling out. But then I was able to do a couple of his shows, and that was the beginning of it. Ronnie and I became very, very good friends, and I admired him in a lot of ways. And I started to do these shows, and it's been wonderful for me. It's just a rejuvenation when you get on stage.
When you were 17 years old, can you imagine that here you are now in this prime of your life, you're still back there singing the same songs, and the demand is greater than it's ever been?
I'm flabbergasted by it, and my wife Karen, who comes with me, to do these shows, she just can't believe, the accolades that we get and the loyalty of our fans. These are the greatest fans that I've ever seen. they're just fabulous, and I love them.
Yeah, and they're so true. And Kenny Vance and I have talked several times that he believes that this music will come back around. And it may be 20 years or 30 years from now, but eventually, someday, the kids are going to be sitting on the street corner. They're going to be in a bathroom looking for an echo. The same thing's going to happen because the music is so pure and so good.
Well, I don't disagree with that, and I will tell you about an experience that I had. I did a couple of shows in Spain, and I was flabbergasted. There wasn't anybody over 40 in the audience, and it was packed. And they're real fans, and other parts of Europe as well.
Yeah.
They love Doo Wop.
Do you get a chance to sing with your daughter, I'm told, Kim, every now and then?
Not as much as I would love to sing with her. She has a fabulous voice.
I've heard you guys one time, yeah.
And I would really like to sing with Kim. And also my son Stephen, who is a conductor. He's a classical music conductor, and he has a great voice too. We had a chance to do a track on Audrey, which is the backside of Tell Me Why. And about 7 or 8 years ago, we did the track in New Jersey, and I wanted the two kids to sing with me, and they did. And I resurrected. I got the track. I just got it a couple of weeks ago. I'm listening to it, and I just love it, and I'm able to sing with them on this track. But yeah, that's a great experience to be able to sing with you.
I would love that track so we can attach it to this interview.
I will give it to you. You got a deal.
That sounds like a deal. Tell me about the Rob Roys now. You use Warren Tesoro. You use a bunch of guys that are, to me, are icons in the New York City area. They've done so much to keep the music alive.
Well, Warren is the top of the heap, and I can't say enough about him. He's been a little under the weather lately, and hopefully he's better. He'll be at the show that we're doing today, and he's been with me for a number of years. Tino Alvarez has been with me for a number of years, and we have a bass who.
Do you use Les? Do you use Les Levine for
No,
your bass? No,
we don't use Les. I'm trying to think of my bass's name, but I can't. Anyway, he's. Don't put this in the segment because it'll embarrass me. But it'll come to me. But he's singing with us now, and today for the show, we have an original Rob Roy coming to sing with us, who has started the group with me 65 years ago.
Wow.
And he's not well. And I wanted to have him on this performance with us tonight, and the boys are bringing him out. And so he's going to be singing. His name is Bob Thera. He's an original Rob Roy. They practiced with him, and they told me that he sounds great. So he's coming with us to sing tonight.
Was he part of the Velvetones that became
Yes.
the Robert? Really?
He was one. Yes.
Wow. And how was that group? 16, 17, or was that before that, the Velvetones?
That was about, we were 16 and 17.
High school.
Yeah.
As you look back at your career, obviously you had a successful business career, and the music went away for times because you're so busy, but you look back at where it was then and where it is now. What are your thoughts about how it's all come back around again?
I think that music is a sign of the times that it's produced in, and the dimension of the people who were in the world at that time. I believe that we started rock and roll music. I was not very close to Alan Freed, but he was a neighbor of mine, which I didn't know up until the time that somebody told me he lived in my building, and I was a friend of his daughter. I was in his apartment. I met him numerous times. He was coming from another place. Great people come from another place, and he brought this music to us. He was the beginning of rock and roll music in this country, and he put it together with rhythm and blues, with jazz, because at the early rock and roll shows, he had Count Basie and Joe Williams and Sarah Vaughan and a number of those people from the jazz era in those shows. So yeah, I think that that was a sign of those times. As the music progressed through the 60s and 70s and 80s and up to it reflects the nature of the people that live in those times, and a signature of what they want to say.
Were you one of the first interracial groups?
We were the first, and the Dove Vikings came out very short after us, but we were the first interracial group.
All went to high school together? Is that how you met?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
We all went to DeWitt Clinton High School.
Yeah. Well, look, I appreciate your time, Norman Fox of the Rob Roys. It's
I wanted just before I finish, the name of that bass is Tommy McManus.
Tommy McManus. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
and he's a great bass, and he sings with a group called the Accords, and he sings with us. He's one of the
I
late
know Tommy,
addition.
right, yeah.
But we had for a number of years we had Bernard Jones, BJ,
Yeah.
who everybody knows,
Loves,
and unfortunately we don't know where he is or
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
situation is. But yeah, we've had a number of people, and they're all great people, and I love them all.
You've been blessed.
I have.
Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you tonight.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. It's a pleasure.